Okay, well, let's begin with classification. And let me tell you, this is very simple if you understand the basics. Let's start with something that we've already understood in the earlier grade. The classification of living organisms. Do you remember classification gave by Sir Robert Harding Whittaker? The 5 kingdom classification is what we are talking about. So if you talk about organisms, they are broadly classified as prokaryotes and eukaryotes, where pro means primitive, old, and karyo means nucleus. They are the cells who are the ancestors of all the other cells that we have now. They don't have anything much in their cell. They don't have anything much in their structures. But when you look at a eukaryote, these eukaryotes have properly defined cell structure with loads of cell organelles inside it. And one, can you see the big bulge in the center with a blue dot? Well, that is the nucleus, which tells us that it's a eukaryote. So when you talk about prokaryotes, all the organisms that come under the category of prokaryotes, they are termed as monera. And these moneras contain a lot of bacteria. But when you talk about the eukaryotes, these eukaryotes can be unicellular or they can be multicellular. Now when we talk about unicellular eukaryotes, their body and the entire function will happen only within one cell. But at the same time, when you talk about multicellular organisms, their function will be carried out in more than one cell, because multi means more than one or many, and of course cellular means cell. So eukaryotes are classified like this. If a eukaryote is a unicellular organism, then it is going to be called as protista. But if it is multicellular, then again there are certain classifications made. And what are the classifications? Whether their cell has a cell wall or they don't have a cell wall. If they have a cell wall, another classification is made. That is, if the cell wall containing cell is autotrophic or is heterotrophic. That is, if a cell can make the own food by themselves and they have a cell wall, then it is going to be called as plantae. They are termed as autotroph. Why? Because they can prepare their own food. But if they have a cell wall and they cannot prepare their own food, they are not green in color, then they will be considered as another kingdom altogether, which is fungi. So right now we have studied 4 kingdoms: Monera, Protista, Plantae and fungi. The one that is left is a multicellular eukaryote without a cell wall, which can move freely here and there. And that sums up to kingdom Animalia. So my dear child, Robert Harding Whittaker gave us this wonderful 5 kingdom classification of organisms which contained kingdoms like Monera, Protista, Plantae, fungi, Animalia. What are we going to study? We are going to understand kingdom Plantae. When you look at this kingdom, you always understand that they are green in color. Plus, they are eukaryotes, that is, newer cells. So, if they are eukaryotic and they are green in color, also they have a cell wall, then you always claim it to be a plant. Why? Because the plant cell has cell wall. Along with the cell wall, it has another structure which is called as the chloroplast, which contains chlorophyll which makes them green in color. As a result of which, what happens, my dear? They become autotrophic. Yes, they can prepare their own food. And as a result of which, they come under the category of Kingdom Plantae. Now, these autotrophic organisms, they are not preparing food just for themselves, but rather they prepare food for everyone, a chain of organisms that are present in the nature. And that is what is the beauty of Kingdom Plantae. But how is this Kingdom Plantae classified? Well, it's classified either on the basis of presence or absence of organs, conducting tissues and seeds. When you talk about organs, what kind of organs are we looking in a plant? So there are many plants who have a proper style, stigma and ovary which comprises the female part of the plant, and an anther and a filament which comprises the male part of the plant. So there are certain plants who have distinguished organs, but there are some plants who will not even have proper root, stem and leaves. So that is why the presence or the absence of organ is considered as one of the major classification criteria. Secondly, it's the conducting tissue. Just imagine, my dear child, if they don't have a proper roots, stems and leaves, do you think they're going to have conducting tissues? Of course, no. And if they have these proper structures, then of course they will have conducting tissues like xylem and phloem, which provides the plant a way to transport food, water and minerals from the roots to the leaves and from the leaves to the roots. So the presence or the absence of conducting tissue is also another important criteria. Next, we have seeds. Whether a plant has seed or it does not have seed. Now, my dear child, even if the seeds are present, whether they are present inside the fruit or whether they are not present inside the fruit, that is, they are not enclosed in the fruit, is also a criteria. So even when you go at higher levels of plants, the classification also remains on the same basis. The presence or the absence of flower, the presence or the absence of fruit, and the presence or the absence of seeds. Even if the seeds are present, whether they are enclosed or whether they are not. And hence, your plants on all these bases are classified as whether it is a flowering plant or whether it is a non-flowering plant. My dear child, cryptogams are said to be non-flowering plants. Just look at them. They just have leaves. There are categories of cryptogams that don't even have proper root, stem and leaves. So they all come under cryptogams. But when you look at a phanerogam, it's beautiful. Why? Because they have proper flowers. So they are considered as flowering plants. Even when they are flowering, it will depend upon the seeds whether the phanerogams have seeds that are enclosed inside a fruit or they are not. If they are enclosed inside a fruit, it means the seed has a covering of fruit over it, right? And that is called as angiosperms. Angio means enclosed, hidden, and sperms means seed. It means the seeds are hidden within the fruit. Gymnosperms is another category. Gymnos means naked and sperms means seed. That is, these plants have seeds but they are naked. They are not enclosed within a fruit. So that is how your phanerogams are classified. Even except for this, if it's an angiosperm, that is, it has a seed enclosed within a structure or a fruit, it will be classified whether they are dicots or they are monocots. And how do you identify them? Very simple. You take a seed, try to break it down into two parts. A seed is called as a cotyledon. If it breaks down into two parts, two means di, seeds means cots, that's cotyledons. So it is divided as a dicotyledons having two similar structures when one seed is broken down. And when you talk about another structure, that is of the monocots, which is just one seed which cannot be broken down into two equal halves. So that is how, my dear child, your entire classification of plant occurs. Plants are divided as cryptogams, phanerogams. Phanerogams further divided as gymnos, angiosperms are further divided as dicots and monocots. Wondering who gave all of these classifications, who study about this, right? So it was a botanist in 1883 called as Eichler, who was the first person to study Kingdom Plantae and classify this kingdom into two sub-kingdoms, that is cryptogams and phanerogams.
And yes, please do not forget to like, share, subscribe and press the bell icon.